Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows. I am very excited to share with you my update today. I have quite a few pans to show you, but before I jump into any of that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just start talking about the eyeshadows I've been working on over the last month. So as always, I'm going to go through the eyeshadows kind of in the order of the longest they've been in the project, and I have two eyeshadows that have been in here now since the start, so 2 months. And the first one comes from Anastasia and it is from the Sultry palette in the shade Birch. So this is actually the second shade from this palette that I have in this project, obviously not this year but overall. And this is just a really nice transition shade, and there is where I was last month, and I have used it an additional 8 times since then, and hopefully you can see there that I was actually able to hit pan. It's not a massive pan, but I am trying to hit pan on so many things this year that I am happy with that little amount. So it is now the second pan that I have in this palette, and I do love this palette. It's a beautiful one, and I have been rocking the cool tones looks quite a bit. Today it's not a really warm tone, but it's a bit warmer than I have been wearing recently, so it's kind of nice to switch it up. But I have been rocking these kind of neutral tones on more of an everyday basis, and this was kind of the first one that I focused in on, and it was my like everyday transition shade for work for like the first week and a half, and after that I hit pan on it. So in total it took me 17 times to hit pan on that eyeshadow. And there you can see the swatch of Birch. Like I said, it's more of a kind of neutral to cool tone brown transition shade. So the next shade comes from my Desi and Katie Francation palette by Dose of Colors. This is in the shade Girl Bye, and I have had this in, like I said, 2 months as well, and I'm actually wearing this quite heavily today. It is kind of the shade that's on my outer corners and slightly into the crease. So this is where I was last month. I did have a little bit of a dip in it, but this right here is where I am today. So as you can see, I do have a baby pan in this palette. The palette is quite reflective, but I'm sure you can see the pan there. I did actually hit pan on it today doing this look. I was kind of debating doing something more colourful because I like doing like colourful looks on the weekend, especially since now when I'm working I have to do more neutral looks in the week. But I just knew that I was so close to hitting pan on this that I decided to make this kind of the focus shade for this look, at least for the mattes. I do have another kind of browner shade in the inner crease, but this is the main matte shade that is in that corner, like I said, and up in the crease here. I did actually use this shade 18 times over the last month for a total of 27 uses to hit pan on it. And I feel like the dip is, I mean, I do have a decent dip I would say in it, but it is more focused because I did try to use, well, especially towards the end I used more of an outer corner brush, which is why I guess the pan is so small as well. But I am really happy to have pan on this, and again, this is the second pan that I have in this palette. I have pan on these 2 shades right here, so it's going to be nice to kind of roll this palette out, especially since both of these palettes have been in now for 2 months, and it's going to be nice to use to replace these and get some new eyeshadows to work on. And there you have the shade from the Dose of Color palette swatched. It's not really built up that much, but you can get the idea just from the swatch. So now we're moving on to the shades that I rolled in last month, and we're going to start with the one that comes from my focus palette. I have 2 focus palettes, which are these 2 right here, the Naked 1 and Naked 3, and this month the shade came from my Naked 1 palette, and it was in the shade Toasted. So this is what Toasted looked like when I rolled it in. I have used this shade 13 times since I rolled it in, and this right here is where I am today. So it is another pan in this palette and in this project, and I'm really excited about that. This was a shade that I really focused in on. I really wanted to hit pan on this because that's kind of what I want to do with these 2 like focus palettes, because they are getting really old and I just want to get some use out of them. So this was like my main focus, and obviously with the Dose of Color shade, because that is more matte and this is kind of like a shimmery shade. It's not that shimmery though, so what I did with this is I usually pair it like all over the lid, but I topped it with one of my Stila glitters and glows, and just to kind of give that sparkle to the eye. And that's something that I did a lot over the past month. I also tried it kind of all over the lid up in the crease, like for like a one done look as well, I think once, and then I did that as a base with some other shades on top of it for another look. And that is probably why I pan on it so quickly, because these pans are rather deep, but I just really wanted to focus on it, and every time I used this shade I used quite a lot of it. So this is another pan, and now I'm getting quite a lot of use in this palette. I'm very excited to see quite a few pans peeking through now when I look at this, but obviously if you have been following this project, I will roll in a new shade to replace this from one of these two palettes. So hopefully I will get some more pan in this one, maybe not this coming month, but at least throughout this year. And there you can see the swatch of Toasted. It does have a little bit of a shine to it, but it's not a super shimmery shade. The next shade is probably my biggest fail over the last month. This is my Anastasia Denona shade from the Metropolis palette, and I used to have it in my Low C palette because you can depot these shades and they are magnetic. So I used to have it in here because it's easier for me to reach for when I used to have like the single rather than the massive palette where I only use one shade. So with this shade, this is where I was last month. It was basically completely brand new, and I actually only used this twice over the last month. So this is what the pan looks like now. You can definitely see some usage in it, and it's actually a little bit of a dip. And the reason why it's already a slight dip after 2 uses is because one of those uses was using this as a nail polish, and I do believe I took a photo of it, so I will insert that up here if I did. But I loved using it as a nail polish. It actually looked really nice, and I used to love how it turned out. This shimmer is a bit too deep for me to use like as an all over lid shade, but I have done it a few times topping up with some other shades. And one thing that I wanted to try with last month but I haven't yet is using this as a liner. So I'll definitely have to kind of find more ways to incorporate this into my looks next month. But yeah, I was just a bit worn out, and although I've been wearing tons of green looks recently, this isn't a shade that I've been gravitating towards, and I feel like overall I am a little bit worn out now with the green looks. So I feel like this is something that I will have to pair maybe even with my neutral looks in my outer corner, or like I said, as a liner. So that's probably how I'm going to get use out of it in the next month. And I'm definitely going to use this as a nail polish again, maybe 1 or 2 more times to help me hit that pan, because like I said, I really loved how that looked. And I also forgot to mention what this shade is called. It's called Jubilee, and that is what it looks like in this swatch. Then we have the final shade that I was working on over last month, and that came from my Amrisi palette. The shade I rolled in was Georgina, and again I rolled this in last month. This is what it looked like when I first rolled it in. It was completely untouched. I hadn't even swatched this, I think. And this right here is where I am today. So it is another one that I hit pan on, which is very exciting. This was a really nice lid shade. It is a bit more of a deeper shimmer, but it's not obviously as deep as this one. And I really enjoyed using this with my neutral looks, topping it or like pairing it with some golds or some other kind of pink tone shimmers. I am actually trying to use Anastasia in my A to C project pan, so sometimes I pair these two together as well, which was really nice because I feel like with this shade, since it is a bit more of a deeper shimmer, I like putting a lighter shimmer kind of in my inner thirds, if that makes sense. So I have it pan on this one as well, which is very exciting, which means I will have to roll in 4 new shades this month. And with Georgina, it only took me 8 times to pan, and I think that is because I had to build it up quite a lot, and it is more of a kind of flaky formula, you know, the kind of newer Anastasia shimmer formulas that you can find in this palette, in the Novena palette, and in the Soft Glam palette, and also in the Sultry palette. But like, you know, that kind of formula, and I feel like I can get through them quite quickly because they are a bit more kind of chunky, and yeah, I used to sometimes have to build them up a bit more, but they are absolutely stunning when you do, and that is the swatch of it right there. So these are the 4 that I rolled out, and not surprisingly they are all of the neutral shades, and then the green shade that I rolled in last month I am keeping in the project. So let's go ahead and randomize some shades to replace the 4 that I'm rolling out. So if you saw my video last week with my Glam shop order, you know that I added some eyeshadows in my collection. So I have an additional 20 eyeshadows, which means that I now have a total of 573 eyeshadows. So let's just go ahead and randomize, and the first one will be number 31, which should definitely be another Anastasia shade. So let's see where that comes from. So my memory just got full, so if the setting looks a bit different, that's why. But I was just saying that number 31 comes from a Novena palette, and it is actually a shade that I'm working on in my A2C project pan in the shade Wild Child. And since I don't really want to double dip, I am going to re-roll. So the actual first shade will be number 455. So 455 is one of my MAC singles, and this one is in the shade Soft Brown. The next shade will be number 198. Ooh, like it's one of my from my Star Wars palette. 198 comes from one of my newer palettes in my collection. This one comes from the Colourpop The Child palette, which is the Star Wars Mandalorian palette, and the shade that I rolled in is the shade Droid Protocols. So I'm really excited to work on that, especially since it is a newer palette in my collection. But let's see what the third one will be. That will be 534, which will be a single. So let's see what that is. So speaking of my Glam Shop singles, this is actually one of the ones that I purchased, and this one is in the shade Teal. I think it is Tiul, and I know exactly which shade that is. I did mention at the beginning of the year that I might put a usage goal on my kind of indie shades to use them 15 times, so I have to think if I want to do that or hit pan on this shade, but that is going to be the third one that I'm rolling in. So those are the 3 shades that I'm rolling in from my spreadsheet, and then as you know I have my focus palette, so the 4th shade I'm rolling in is going to come from these 2. And yeah, as always, shade 1 through 12 comes from this one, and 13 to 24 from this one. And if I happen to roll something that already have pan on it, I am gonna re-roll. So I have put in 1 to 24 in my randomizer, and let's go ahead and see what shade I get. Number 13, which would be the first shade in the Naked 3 palette, which I actually think that I might already have pan on, but let's double check. I do, yes, I thought so. So that is this shade right here, which is called Strange, and as you can see I already have pan on this, so I am going to go ahead and re-roll. So let's see, number 16, which is also from the Naked 3 palette, but let's see if I have pan on this one. So it's 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 is this shade Limit, which is a really nice mauve shade right here. So it looks like I'm going to continue on with the cool tone looks over the next month, but I am fine with that. I actually really love this shade, and I'm very excited to continue working on this, or like to try to pan on it. So let's swatch this out and then go and grab the rest of the shades, and I will be right back. So I am back, and I just want to show you the Naked 3 shade first. So that is the shade, I think, was it Limits? Yeah, Limits, I believe so. That is the shade there, and it's a beautiful kind of mauvey purplish tone, and it's just the perfect tone of mauve as well. So I'm really excited to be working on that shade. The remaining shades are actually in these 2 palettes here, because I put the 2 singles in my mini palette, like my mini C palette, and then I have the Child palette here. So let's just start with this palette right there, and as you see, I haven't actually checked what shade it is, but it is the last shade in the palette, Droid Protocol, and it is, of course it is the kind of neutral shade in the palette, I would say. It is this kind of deep brown right here, but I am excited to work on this, and I think this is going to be a really nice one to incorporate into my everyday looks. So there you have the deep brown swatched out, and it is a very pigmented shade. This is actually not even that much. I just put a little bit on and kind of smooth that out, but that is the shade that I'm going to work on from the Child palette. Then we have my 2 singles, and I put them, like I said, in my C palette. So the 2 singles that I'm rolling in are these 2 right here. So we have Soft Brown from MAC, and then we have Teal, I don't know how to pronounce it, from Glam Shop. And this one is such a cool shade. I hope you can see that it goes from like a green to a purple, and it's a very kind of shifty shade. And again, I'm not really sure if I want to pan on this yet, or if I just want to put a usage goal. But I think I'm going to put the usage goal of 15 now to start. I might actually even have pan in those 15 uses. I don't know how kind of soft these shades are in the long run. They are quite, actually they're not that deep. They're definitely not as deep as the MAC shades, so hopefully you can see. So I might actually pan on this in 15 uses, but I'm going to put that as my goal. And if I hit those 15 uses and I'm close to pan, I might evaluate, but that is going to be my goal for that one. And I just want to show it on my finger before I swatch it, but look at that shift. You can see the green and then the purple, and yeah, it's just a beautiful shade. So there you have the shade, and I'm hoping again you can see the shift. It's a beautiful shade. I'm very excited to be working on this one. And then for Soft Brown, which is this shade right here, you can see it's cracked a little bit, but it's definitely fine. And I think I might still kind of focus in on the middle of the pan, because I like hitting pan in the center. But this is a really nice, slightly warmer transition shade. It is swatched down there. And then yeah, obviously with this one, my goal is to hit pan on it. So those are the shades that I am rolling in, and this right here is my new color story, and oh my god, I am in love with it. I feel like this will pair perfectly with the Glam Shop shade. This transition shade will also pair perfectly with a Glam Shop shade with the deeper brown in the crease. This brown down here might not go with other shades as well, but I even think like this warmer shade will go nice with this green right here, if I want to use create like a smoky eye. But then also it's just so satisfying to look at this. I feel like it's just a really nice and cohesive color story. And overall, although I have 2 greens, I feel like it is still a very neutral and wearable color palette. I have 3 mattes, which is a little bit worrying because mattes always take me longer to pan on, especially the Colourpop ones. They are very deep, and I think the MAC one as well will take quite a while. But yeah, overall I am very excited with this color palette, and I just love staring at it. So this month I have 3 looks to share with you. I am gonna scooch to the side so you can see the pictures right here. The first one is one look that I did quite a lot in the beginning of the month, and for this look I used Toasted as a base. I believe in the outer corner I do have the Dose of Color shade, which was called, what is it called again? It is called Girl Bye. So I think I have that on my outer corner, and then in my crease I might have Birch, but I am not sure about that. But I do wear the other 2 shades, and then to kind of make it a bit more interesting, I had topped the Toaster shade with, I think, one of my shades from my Juvia's Place palette in the shade Faso. I think that's what I have on top of it. But that is the first look, and I did this quite a lot in the beginning of the month, which helped me make a dip in the shade Toasted. The second look is like the fun look of the month. This one is the one look where I used Jubilee all over my lid. In my crease, I think I used the yellow from the Nick Tutorials and Beauty Pay palette. It's called Vla, which is like a really pastel yellow. I think I used that to blend out the deep green shade. In the outer corner I am wearing the shade Water Bearer from the Dream Street palette, which I'm panning in my A2C project pan. No wait, no I'm not, I'm panning it in my whole collection project pan. And then in my inner corner I think I have either Denona shade or the shade Coral from Juvia's Place, but I think it actually might be both, just on top of each other. And that is this look, which is, like I said, the kind of fun look that I did with my Pan Those Eyeshadows. Then next up we have this look right here, which is another kind of everyday neutral look that I did quite a lot, especially towards the end, to hit pan on Georgia. Obviously I have Georgia all over the lid. I have Girl Bye from Those Color palette on my outer corner. In my crease I believe I have the shade Love from the Norvina palette by Anastasia, or I also did this look with Bon Fresco from the Mona Renaissance palette, so it's either one of those 2, and I did that variation quite a lot as well. In my corner I'm just wearing the Super Shock shadow in Super Hardcore from Colourpop, which I am trying to hit pan on as well. So that is the second look, and like I said, this is how I hit pan on the shade Georgina. And then just to show you today as well, I am only wearing one of my Pan Those Eyeshadows shade, which is Girl Bye, but like I said, I am wearing that on my outer corner. And the shade that I have on my lids today is actually another one of my Glam Shop shades. I think it's in this shade Zigzag. But yeah, that is what I'm wearing on my eyes. And for my kind of inner part of my crease, I am wearing a shade from my Pan palette, and in my inner corner I'm wearing another Glam Shop shade, but I can't remember the name of that on the top of my head, but it's like one of the iridescent shades. So that is my look today. And with that, you guys, I am wrapping up this Pan Those Eyeshadows update. I am very excited to have rolled out 4 shades this month, and like I said, I am just in love with my new color story. So that is it. If you did like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and otherwise I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye guys.